Should I be adding water to my bourbon? Or bourbon to my water?
I'm a complete beginner looking to improve my palate and learn more about bourbon, so come along with me.
Alright, as part of my palate improvement project, you probably noticed I've been drinking, trying out a bourbon. I'll try it neat, just by itself, and then I'll have it over ice and try that. And one of my viewers said, you know what you really should be doing is not using ice because that chills the bourbon, but just put a little bit of water in it. And he said, just a little bit, it opens up the flavors. And I did some research on the internet, and yeah, there's a lot of people talking about how adding a little bit of water to the bourbon will open up the flavors. I guess it breaks the surface tension of the bourbon, and then you get a lot more flavors and more of the bourbon notes. So let's try it out, and let's see if should we be using distilled water or just tap water. So I've got a little experiment, and we're just going to give it a try. So let me get that set up. All right, I've got 3 1-ounce pours of Larceny Small Batch, 92 proof. It's a good bourbon. It's not super expensive, but it's not one of the really cheap bourbons. So just wanted to get a good bourbon for this test, and it's one I've used before in my palate tasting project. So what I'm going to do is have a control bourbon. This one we won't put any water in. This one we'll put in regular tap water, just room temperature tap water, and this one we will put in distilled water. And I'm only going to put in, they say, just a little bit, so we're going to put in just basically a quarter of a teaspoon, and that relates to half a teaspoon for a 2-ounce pour. I just did a 1-ounce pour. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a quarter teaspoon of water here in this one, and this is the distilled water. Okay. And this one, because I don't have a pipette, I'm just going to use just a little straw to get that. And I want to make sure that I get it to a quarter of a teaspoon. So let's go ahead and do that. And that is a quarter of a teaspoon. And a quarter of a teaspoon for a regular drinking straw is about 2 inches on the drinking straw. That'll give you about a quarter of a teaspoon. And so this is just regular water. Okay. So let's go ahead and give them a smell and just see if we can tell any difference. And first, just look at it, and they say that you can kind of see the oils chasing the water around or something like that. I don't know if I see anything like that, but let's go ahead and give it a try. We'll go ahead and start out with just the straight bourbon with no water in it and give that a taste. Well, first let's give it a smell. Yeah, it's not really too strong of a smell. It's good. It has that little bit of caramel and vanilla, just a little bit. Okay, let's try the one with the just tap water. Just a quarter of a teaspoon of tap water. Yeah, maybe it's a little smoother. And there might be a little difference in the smell. Okay, let's try the one with the the distilled water. I think I'm getting a little bit more caramel smell than I was. Of course, my palate is not really refined, so you know it's going to take a lot for something for me to actually notice. It does taste a little bit more. These two, I really can't tell the difference, but both of them do taste a little smoother and a little bit more caramel taste note than this guy. Yeah, I think I can smell the difference. It's a little more pronounced. And this one just has a little bit of alcohol smell. A little more alcohol smell. But that does make a difference. A little sharper. And a little smoother and a little more pronounced caramel. Is this actual truth? I mean, is there any truth to this? Putting water into your bourbon breaks the surface tension and allows the esters to evaporate faster, and other chemical reactions that happen because of the water. I mean, because bourbon is, it's mostly water anyway. An 80 proof bourbon is 60% water. Okay, that's just the way it is. A 92 proof is a little bit less water. Is it just watering it down, making it just a little bit less alcohol content, or is it actually doing something to the taste and to the flavor? So this is something you probably need to try. Just take a bourbon, put it in 3 glasses, maybe just 2. Just put straight in 1 glass and a little bit of water in the other. And you might try putting in just a 1/4 teaspoon, then bring it up to a 1/2 teaspoon. I wouldn't go past 20% water. I think from what I was reading, if you get past 20% water, you're basically just watering it down. So you just want a little bit, but yeah, give it a try, and just see if just put a little water in your bourbon, if it opens it up and kind of enhances the flavor. I know that using ice does that too, but it chills the bourbon down, and that kind of numbs some of the tongue. So they say that's really probably not the best way to taste the bourbon, unless it's a hot day, I guess. Then you really want a piece of ice in it. But another thing about ice is the ice is kind of uncontrolled, and it will melt, and as it melts, it's going to keep changing, keep changing, keep changing. So it's not really the best way to drink bourbon, because especially if you use a big piece of ice and you take a long time to drink it, you're going to water it way down. But a little bit of water, that might be the ticket. So I'm going to try this over the next week, and I'll try some different amounts. I'll try, in a 2-ounce pour, I'll try a half a teaspoon. I'll try a full teaspoon of water, and just see if it makes any difference, and come back, and we'll talk about it again next week. But let's go ahead and try the bourbon I showed you this just at the beginning of this video. It's time to drink a new bourbon, so let's do that. right, I've been drinking over the past week this JTS Brown. It's a 80 proof, kind of inexpensive bourbon. It's a little. There's supposed to be a bottle and bond version of this that is available, and if I can find that, I'll try that out. But it's really nothing to write home about. It's okay. But I've been hearing a lot about Widow Jane, and I got a little 375. I didn't find a 750 of this, but I got a 375 of it. And this is a 10-year bourbon, and it says it's aged 10 years, but then it's filtered with the limestone water from the Widow Jane mine in the Catskills. So they take, here it says it's Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana bourbon, bottled by Widow Jane Distillery, Brooklyn, New York. So evidently they take, and it says, let's see, hand assembled in Brooklyn using the richest and rarest straight bourbons, only ever in 5-barrel batches, non-chill filtered and proofed with our own mineral water from the legendary Rosendale mines of New York. So let's give it a try. This is one of those ones that's kind of been all over the place. It's I guess it's made in Kentucky and then shipped to New York, and then they bottle it there and add the water from New York. So let's give it a try. But go ahead and open it up and let it breathe for a few minutes. So go ahead and pour a little bit. So yeah, it's a little darker. It's non-chill filtered, and I think that's good. I think really all the chill filtering does is keeps the bourbon from getting cloudy if it gets cold. So, but I think that also takes out a lot of the flavors. So let's give this a try. So we got our JTS Brown here. We'll go ahead and give it a try. This is what I've been drinking over the past week. So it's got a little bit of a little alcohol smell. It's just sort of just a generic bourbon. So it's okay. It has a little bit of the caramel and a little bit of vanilla, but just a little bit, and it's just nothing really to write home about. That's for sure. So let's go ahead and give this guy a smell and see what it smells like. I'm getting kind of a sort of a fruit smell. Maybe like, I know I've smelled pears before in some different bourbons, and maybe that's kind of a little bit of what I'm smelling. Maybe pears or apples. So let's give him a try. And that's good. Oh, that's really good. Kind of a pear taste, maybe a little cinnamon. What's the proof on this guy? So he's 91 proof. But yeah, this is really good. So I'm going to put just a tiny bit of water in here. I'm going to do the water trick. I'm not going to put a whole quarter of a teaspoon in here, since that's not a full ounce. I'm just going to put just a little bit, just a drop of distilled water. Well, maybe a little more than a drop. So let's kind of see how that does. If it changes him. Oh yeah, I smell more of that fruit smell. Oh yeah. And it brings out a little bit more of the fruit smell, the fruit taste too. It has a little cinnamon finish. Oh, this is. So I tell you what I'll do. I'll drink this over the course of the week, and then come back next week, and we'll give it a try again and just see if my impressions have changed. If you'd like to do this with me and improve your palate, you don't have to pick the bourbons that I pick. Although this is actually not bad. It's very good. You can just pick a bourbon that you like, do a tasting of it, drink it over the course of a week, come back and do another tasting, and see if your palate's changed, if your impressions of that bourbon have changed, if you're tasting new things, and if your palate is changing. So probably the hardest thing is going to be is not drinking this whole bottle and not having anything to taste next week. So I'll try to do it in moderation. So until next week, if you would like and subscribe, it really helps the channel, and we like making these videos for you. But drink responsibly, and in the meantime, enjoy. That is really good.